Have you ever noticed how your most profound realizations emerge not from the constant noise of daily life, but from those rare moments of complete silence? What if the key to unlocking your mind's full potential isn't found in saying more, but in the art of saying nothing at all? We live in a world that never stops talking. From the moment we wake to the second we fall asleep, we're bombarded by a relentless stream of notifications, conversations, media, and mental chatter. Our smartphones ping with urgency. Our televisions blare with breaking news. Our workplaces hum with activity. And our minds race with endless to-do lists. This constant noise has become so normalized that we barely notice its presence anymore. Yet its impact on our cognitive function, creativity, and overall well-being is profound. We've become addicted to stimulation, uncomfortable with even brief moments of silence. We fill every potential quiet space with podcasts during commutes, background music during work, and scrolling during downtime. But what if this perpetual noise is the very thing standing between us and our greatest potential? What if silence isn't merely the absence of sound, but rather a powerful force for mental clarity, deep thinking, and self-discovery? Today we'll explore how cultivating silence can transform our minds, enhance our creativity, sharpen our focus, and ultimately unlock capabilities we never knew we possessed. Consider the case of a fictional tech executive named Michael. For years, Michael prided himself on his ability to multitask, constantly juggling meetings, emails, and strategic planning. His days were packed with activity from 5 a.m. to midnight, and he wore his busy schedule as a badge of honor. Yet despite his constant activity, Michael found himself stuck in a cycle of diminishing returns. His company wasn't innovating as it once had. His decision-making felt reactive rather than visionary, and a persistent sense of burnout shadowed even his biggest achievements. It wasn't until a power outage forced him to spend an evening without electricity, no internet, no television, no digital distractions, that something shifted. In those unexpected hours of silence, Michael's mind began to wander in ways it hadn't for years. Solutions to problems that had stumped his team for months suddenly appeared with clarity. A vision for his company's future emerged not from a strategic planning session, but from the quiet space he'd accidentally created. This phenomenon isn't unique to Michael's experience. Throughout history, our greatest thinkers have recognized the creative power of silence. Einstein famously claimed his theory of relativity came to him during a daydream. Newton's groundbreaking ideas on gravity emerged during a period of isolation when Cambridge University closed due to plague. Archimedes had his famous eureka moment not while actively working, but while taking a bath, a rare moment of quiet reflection in his day. Modern neuroscience now confirms what these great minds intuited. When we enter states of silence, particularly during what scientists call default mode network activation, our brains don't actually shut down. They light up in different ways. Areas responsible for making new connections between disparate ideas become more active. Self-awareness increases. Creative problem-solving flourishes. Consider a study from the University of Helsinki, where researchers found that just 2 hours of silence daily promoted the development of new cells in the hippocampus, the brain region associated with memory formation and learning. Another study from Duke University demonstrated that periods of silence help subjects retain information and make better decisions when faced with complex problems. What's happening in these quiet moments? Without external stimuli competing for our attention, our brains begin processing accumulated information, making connections between seemingly unrelated concepts, and integrating new knowledge with existing understanding. Silence also creates space for deep work, the kind of focused, uninterrupted thinking that produces breakthrough insights. In our age of constant interruption, this type of sustained concentration has become increasingly rare and incredibly valuable. Think about a novelist crafting an intricate plot, a scientist formulating a groundbreaking hypothesis, or an artist conceptualizing a revolutionary piece. These achievements don't emerge from fragmented attention. They require immersion in thought, uninterrupted by external noise or internal distraction. As we've filled every moment with input, we've systematically eliminated the very conditions necessary for our most profound thinking. We've traded depth for breadth, wisdom for information, and insight for entertainment. There exists a pivotal threshold in everyone's journey with silence, a moment when what begins as uncomfortable emptiness transforms into something profoundly different. This transformation represents not just an adjustment to quiet, but a fundamental shift in how we relate to our own consciousness. Imagine a fictional meditation retreat where participants commit to 7 days of complete silence. For most attendees, the first 48 hours are excruciating. Their minds rebel against the absence of stimulation. Past conversations replay on endless loops. Worries about the future crowd their thoughts. Their internal narrator becomes deafening in the absence of external noise. But around the third day, something remarkable typically occurs. The internal chatter begins to slow. The spaces between thoughts grow longer, and in these expanding gaps, a different quality of awareness emerges. One that's more spacious, more present, and significantly more powerful. This transition point represents a fundamental shift in cognitive functioning. It's the moment when the mind stops desperately seeking input and begins accessing its deeper capabilities. Neuroscientists observing brain activity during extended periods of silence have documented this shift. Initially, the brain shows patterns of restlessness and resistance. But as silence continues, activity in the default mode network, the system responsible for self-reflection, mental time travel, and creative insight, begins to strengthen and organize. This pivotal threshold explains why brief moments of quiet in our daily lives, while better than nothing, rarely unlock our full cognitive potential. We need to push through the initial discomfort to reach the transformative power on the other side. When we do, the results can be remarkable. Complex problems that seemed insurmountable become clear. Creative blocks dissolve. The constant background anxiety that many experience fades, replaced by a grounded sense of clarity. This state of mind, sometimes called deep silence, shares characteristics with what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi termed flow, that optimal state where we're fully immersed in an activity, operating at the height of our abilities. The difference is that flow traditionally occurs during intense activity, while deep silence creates similar conditions through the absence of activity. Both states share a dissolution of self-consciousness, altered perception of time, and access to heightened cognitive function. Both represent the mind operating at its full potential, unhindered by distraction or limitation. This explains why so many breakthrough insights throughout history have emerged not from frenzied activity, but from moments of profound quiet. From Descartes' fundamental principles of modern philosophy, conceived during solitary contemplation in a poêle or heated room, to Darwin's theory of evolution, formulated during long, silent walks on his thinking path. Revolutionary ideas often crystallize in silence. The most powerful aspect of this pivotal threshold is that once experienced, it becomes easier to access. The mind learns that silence is not emptiness, but fullness, not absence, but presence. With practice, the transformation happens more quickly, and the insights gained grow deeper. This represents the true unlocking of mental potential, not just occasional moments of clarity, but a fundamental rewiring of how we process information, solve problems, and understand ourselves. The challenge, of course, lies in creating meaningful silence in our noise-saturated world. How do we cultivate this powerful resource when everything around us, and within us, seems designed to eliminate it? The path begins with small, intentional practices that gradually expand our capacity for silence. Rather than attempting a radical transformation overnight, consider implementing these practical approaches. Start with morning silence. The first hour after waking offers a unique opportunity to set the tone for your day. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone or turning on the news, create a buffer of silence. This doesn't require meditation, though that's certainly beneficial. Simply delay digital engagement and allow your mind to wake naturally. Even 15 minutes can make a remarkable difference in your cognitive baseline for the day. Create technology boundaries. Designate specific times and spaces as technology-free zones. Perhaps it's the dinner table, the bedroom, or the hour before sleep. These boundaries prevent the constant incursion of digital noise into every moment of your life. Practice silent walking. Walking without auditory input, no music, podcasts, or phone calls, allows your mind to process accumulated information and make new connections. Start with just 10 minutes and notice how different this experience feels from your typical movement through the world. Embrace micro-silences throughout your day. These brief pauses, 30 seconds between meetings, a minute before starting your car, the space between finishing one task and beginning another, add up significantly over time. Instead of filling these gaps with quick phone checks, allow them to remain empty. Gradually extend your comfort with silence. Once these smaller practices become habitual, experiment with longer periods. Perhaps a silent morning becomes a silent Sunday. A technology-free evening extends to a technology-free weekend. As your capacity expands, so do the cognitive benefits. Design your environment to support silence. This might mean creating a dedicated quiet space in your home, using noise-canceling headphones in public places, or choosing walking routes away from traffic noise. Physical silence supports mental silence. Practice input fasting. Regularly abstain from consuming new information. No news, social media, or content consumption for designated periods. This prevents the mental processing backlog that often creates internal noise even during external quiet. Cultivate internal silence through mindfulness practices. External quiet means little if our minds remain chaotic. Simple mindfulness techniques focusing on breath, body scanning, or simply observing thoughts without attachment help quiet the internal narrator that often drowns out our deeper thinking. The key with all these approaches lies not in perfection, but in consistency. Even imperfect practice gradually builds your silence muscle, making it easier to access deeper states of quiet when needed. It's also worth noting that silence doesn't always mean isolation. Shared silence, experienced in nature with others, during group meditation, or even in the focused quiet of collaborative work, can be equally powerful. The critical factor isn't solitude, but the absence of unnecessary input and distraction. As you implement these practices, you'll likely notice resistance, both from yourself and others. Our culture often interprets silence as unproductive, disengaged, or even antisocial. Recognize these reactions as symptoms of our collective noise addiction rather than valid concerns. Most importantly, approach silence not as another self-improvement project with rigid metrics of success, but as an ongoing exploration. The benefits unfold gradually and often unexpectedly. What begins as a simple practice to reduce stress often becomes a doorway to profound cognitive enhancement and personal insight. As we've explored throughout this journey, silence offers far more than mere reprieve from noise. It represents a fundamental shift in how we engage with ourselves and the world. A shift that unlocks dormant capabilities and transforms our relationship with our own consciousness. The benefits extend far beyond the moments of silence themselves. Regular practice creates lasting changes in cognitive function and emotional regulation. Studies show that people who incorporate periods of silence into their daily routine demonstrate measurable improvements in attention control, working memory, and cognitive flexibility. They report higher levels of emotional resilience and lower reactivity to stressors. Perhaps most significantly, silence enhances our capacity for depth in thinking, in relationship, and in experience. In a world increasingly characterized by superficial engagement and constant partial attention, this depth becomes a superpower. Consider how different decisions might be when made from a place of clear, spacious awareness, rather than reactive thinking. Imagine relationships deepened by true presence rather than distracted half-attention. Think about how work might transform when approached with a mind capable of sustained focus and creative insight. The Japanese concept of ma, the meaningful space between things, offers a beautiful framework for understanding silence's true value. In traditional Japanese aesthetics, ema is as important as the elements it separates. The empty space in a painting gives meaning to the brush strokes. The pause in music gives rhythm to the notes. The silence between words gives power to speech. Similarly, the silence we cultivate gives meaning and power to our activity. It doesn't diminish our engagement with life, but enhances it. We don't seek silence to escape the world, but to enter it more fully. This perspective transforms silence from a luxury into a necessity, not just for well-being, but for accessing our full capabilities as thinking, creating, and connecting humans. In the space between constant doing, we discover who we are. In the gap between endless input, we find what we actually think. In the pause between continuous expression, we connect with what we truly want to say. The poet Rumi wrote, "Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation." While the spiritual dimensions of silence extend beyond our focus today, his insight captures something essential. Our deepest knowing often exists beyond words, in the quiet space where intuition, insight, and wisdom reside. By reclaiming silence in our lives, even imperfectly, even gradually, we reclaim access to this deeper knowing. We create conditions for our minds to operate not just efficiently, but optimally. We unlock potential that noise continuously obscures. And perhaps most valuably, we rediscover that the most important conversation, the one with our authentic self, can only happen in the absence of constant chatter. As the philosopher Blaise Pascal observed, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. While perhaps an overstatement, his point resonates. Our avoidance of silence costs us dearly. The good news is that silence remains eternally available. No matter how noisy our lives have become, the possibility of quiet awaits our choice to embrace it. And with each intentional moment of silence, we strengthen our capacity to access its power. So as you move forward from this exploration, consider silence not as emptiness to be filled, but as a rich resource to be cultivated, a doorway to your mind's extraordinary potential, waiting just beyond the noise. I'd love to hear about your experiences with silence in the comments below. Have you noticed differences in your thinking or creativity during quiet moments? What challenges do you face in finding silence in your daily life? If you found value in this exploration, please consider subscribing to this channel for more content on maximizing your cognitive potential and living more intentionally. The subscribe button is just below this video. Remember, the journey toward mental clarity isn't about perfection, but consistent practice. Even small moments of silence, cultivated regularly, can create profound shifts in how you think, create, and experience your life. Thank you for your attention. Perhaps the most valuable form of silence we can offer each other in our noisy world. Until next time, may you find moments of transformative quiet in your days.